Governor Cuomo, a no-show. Meanwhile, at work yesterday, reportedly hiding out in the governor's mansion, plotting a way to save his political career as protests were held outside. A blistering New York Post cover today, creep on the ropes. A small plane flying above the state capitol and governor's mansion yesterday with this message: remove Cuomo now. The White House signaling that President Biden will keep a hands-off approach to the scandal after calling for Cuomo to step down.
The president said Governor Cuomo should resign. The governor has not done so. Has the president called the governor?
No.
Does the president want to see him impeached and removed from office?
The president made clear yesterday that Governor Cuomo should resign, and I believe we should start with that. There's obviously a process that's going to proceed, and leaders in New York spoke to that yesterday. We'll leave it to them to speak to that, but the president believes Governor Cuomo should do the right thing, resign, and leave space for future leadership.
Will Cain, Fox and Friends weekend co-host, joins us now. Will, great to see you. Inside of that New York Post cover, creep on the ropes, the editorial board writes, everyone has deserted him. It's over. Just go. Why won't he?
Well, because the world has lied to Governor Cuomo. He's been betrayed by what he thinks, or the way he thinks. The world revolves around him. Think about this. Think about the whiplash that Governor Cuomo must be going through as he sits in the governor's mansion, as you mentioned, plotting how to stay in the halls of power. Number one, this is a man who, along with his brother, for what it's worth, was born on third base and thinks he hit a triple. His name is Cuomo. His father was the governor of New York. Everything in his life has led him to the moment where he can see his way through any scandal because he was given power, essentially. He was born for power. And now to have it taken away, that's quite a whiplash. Add to that, what, 6 months ago, definitely a year ago, we're talking about a man who was talked about replacing Joe Biden on the Democratic ticket for the president of the United States. He was given awards for his press conferences. He was lionized on The View and by every celebrity you can imagine. And then in a quick 12-month term, he has to give away his power. No. How is that possible? He can't, I'm sure, reconcile that. And finally, Sandra, his governing style, for better or worse, has been strength. It's been bullying. He has pushed his way through not just every scandal, but he's pushed his way, his will, across the New York political spectrum. He's gotten his way every time. And how now is he going to have to give up his power? How will his bullying not work? How will his privilege not pull him through? He's probably sitting there right now going, how is this possible? Yeah,
and a big question now is how the White House is going to handle all of this. No plans to call the governor, said Psaki about the president. President Biden also not weighing in on whether or not he should be impeached. He did call for him to resign, but we haven't heard more than that. And the White House is now facing backlash, Will, for dismissing previous sexual misconduct allegations against President Biden, as he is calling for Cuomo to resign.
Should there be an independent investigation of allegations into the president as there was into Governor Cuomo?
The president has been clear and outspoken about the importance of women being respected and having their voices heard and being allowed to tell their stories and people treating them with respect. That has long been his policy, continues to be his policy. That was heavily litigated during the campaign.
Enter the picture Tara Reid, who accused Biden of sexually assaulting her back in 1993. She tweeted, "Ask Psaki, did I miss the investigation and litigation? I sure did not miss the smears and attacks on my character during Joe Biden's campaign as I came forward. Was it safe to come forward? I think not." Ouch. Well, perhaps Psaki shouldn't have gone down that route.
Well, obviously, it wasn't heavily litigated. That's a joke. Nothing in Joe Biden's candidacy was heavily litigated. The entire presidential election was focused on one singular topic, President Donald Trump. So nothing in Joe Biden's record past, or really even in his policies, was heavily litigated. And that's quite the double-edged sword, isn't it, for the Biden administration, calling for accountability for Governor Andrew Cuomo, but ignoring any accountability on the issue, whatever the truth may be, when it comes to Tara Reid. The difference only is this, Sandra, is that, as you've pointed out, you have the entire, not just Republican, but Democratic political base and institution. I'm talking about every, essentially, Democratic Party chair, senator, union rep, union head, and according to Marist, most of the voters in New York calling for Governor Cuomo to resign, and you just don't have that when it comes to Joe Biden. Because it's not about the truth, it's about the political pressure. It's too much for Governor Andrew Cuomo. There's not enough for Joe Biden.
Will Cuomo is also facing new scrutiny over the COVID nursing home death scandal and allegations his office covered up the true death toll. Now, some House Republicans from New York, including Lee Zeldin, reportedly asking Attorney General Merrick Garland for documents on the decision not to open a civil rights probe into Cuomo. Fox's Janice Dean lost both of her in-laws to COVID in New York facilities.
I talked to a lawmaker yesterday who said that there is the chance that they might be trying to make a deal with him to resign, and maybe they drop some of the charges. I don't know how that works out. I'm not a lawyer, but I'd like to know if that is a possibility, because I don't want the nursing home charges to go away. Amen. Okay? I don't.
And that is a big worry, Will. And Janice Dean shared her concerns with us there yesterday. She says if Cuomo resigns or if he is impeached, she's really concerned he will not be held responsible or accountable for those nursing home deaths.
Well, look, Janice has been at the forefront of this issue, and she continues to carry that torch righteously. I think you're going to be talking to Janice a little bit later in the show, and I share her concern. This sexual harassment case, these 11 sexual harassment cases, 11, that's a significant number, but they can't allow the public to forgive Governor Andrew Cuomo or allow him to escape accountability on the thousands of families that are suffering through the orders that were given from Andrew Cuomo when it comes to the nursing home deaths. That accountability can't be sacrificed in the pursuit of this resignation. And I share her concern that that's what could happen here. That if Governor Cuomo resigns for these sexual harassment allegations, that everyone stops. They stop focusing on this policy that cost potentially thousands of lives. And then there was a cover-up as to exactly how many lives we're talking about.
Will, great to have you here on all of that. Thank you.
You too.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.